The $250,000 pen. One of my best friends, Alex, was a staffer in a legislative office. His boss was head of a key Senate budget committee, so there were always people coming to solicit her support for a particular project or grant or whatever. Someone representing an arts program that was looking for a $250,000 grant is waiting. I'll call her Lobby Ann. She comes up to the reception desk and asks for a pen. The senator keeps giveaway pens with her name on them in stock, reasonably nice ones, so Alex reaches over to the can where the pens are. Lobby Ann says something along the lines of,
"Well, then the senator will know that I showed up without a pen."
"So what?" She looks across the desk. Alex has some work spread out with his own favorite pen, an expensive one with lapis inlay, and engraved with his name and term of office of a campus organization. Lobby Ann reaches over, snatches it up and drops it in her purse. Alex, who is a very polite person, is completely gobsmacked and then tells Lobby Ann that's his personal pen and not up for grabs. Lobby Ann gives him a contemptuous look and refuses, very rudely. One of the sad, funny things about this story is that she uses a slur that Alex was not sure was a reference to his heritage, Asian, or his perceived sexuality. Oddly enough, given the nature of the stolen object, either slur ended with ink. Alex, confused and deeply upset, sits back down while Lobby Ann flounces back to the waiting area. In a few minutes the senator comes out to get Lobby Ann. As they're walking past Alex's desk, he stands up and says in a very clear voice,
"I'm going to need my pen back."
Lobby Ann stops in her tracks, as does the senator, and Alex says, calmly,
"I may be a slur, or a slur, whatever you want to call me, but that pen is precious to me. You stole it right off this desk and I want it back."
The senator kind of gasps and says,
"She stole your lapis pen. She called you a slur."
And then she turns to Lobby Ann, who is frantically fishing around in her purse and stammering something about just borrowing it, and says,
"Give it back."
Once the pen is back in Alex's hands, the senator says to Alex,
"Come on back, I need you,"
and turns and walks back into her office, leaving Lobby Ann standing there as the senator shuts the inner office door in her face. Then the senator picks up her purse, smiles a big bright smile and says,
"Want Starbucks?"
So she and Alex go out the side door and across the street. They could see the front door of the office from the Starbucks. It apparently took Lobby Ann about 5 minutes to realize how bad she'd fucked up, and that she was not going to see the senator that day or any day, and that the project she was going to ask for money toward was probably doomed as well. She'd lined up strong support in the House, so it might have made it through, though it was not the kind of project the senator favored. When she came slinking out, she almost certainly saw Alex and the senator sitting there drinking their drinks. Alex always ends this story with,
"That was the best coffee I've ever had."
You're going to bully a little girl and spit water in her face at the water park. Prepare for the tempest.
So I took my 2 young sons to the local water park yesterday. They had a blast. I stayed in the lazy river most of the time with them. I tend to stay about 10 to 20 yards behind them. Close enough to keep an eye on them, far enough for them to have fun. I'm minding my own business, floating in the lazy river, when suddenly a wild bully appears. Cute 10-year-oldish husky boy who's following around a much smaller girl. I'm observing over the course of a few laps of the river as this little turd boy is constantly teasing and intimidating this little girl that's like half his size. I lap them. I'm now right behind victim and bully, my own son's constantly in my view, and I get close enough to hear bully talking trash to his victim, trying to get her to leave the pool. She's visibly scared and trying to get away from him. There are no accompanying adults with these children. This is when I see the bully take a mouthful of water and flat out spit in the girl's face. At this point I'm like, you did not, and I go into action. Things are crazy and hectic because we're surrounded by people in a loud water park, so I know I can get away with this. Just loud enough for him to hear me, I say to the bully from behind him, "Hey." Bully turd turns around. I proceed to go full Honda palm splashing right in his face. After about 6 seconds of Splash and Blastoise level water in his face, bully is coughing and girl is 10 yards ahead near my sons. My work here is done. I proceed to say nothing and pretend nothing has happened. Bully stands shocked, catching his breath in the lazy river as the hapless water-going masses float past, oblivious. 10 minutes later bully is gone and victim has returned to merriment. I think the lifeguard saw me and just didn't care. Tell me I'm lying about having cancer? Enjoy getting chemo vomit on your shoes. This happened almost a year ago. At the time, I was taking a bus regularly to a hospital for chemotherapy, which left me extremely weak and nauseous. So, when possible, I sat in the handicapped section near the front of the bus. Occasionally people would ask me to move. It's a bus to a hospital, so a lot of people need the disabled seats, and I am young and outwardly looked healthy, after my hair had started growing back. Of course, they'd understand when I explained that I needed the seat. Enter bitchy lady, a smartly dressed woman in her 60s. She asks me for my seat, and I explain that I just had chemotherapy and I need the seat. She calls me lazy, calls me a liar, and tells me that I don't look sick. I am too exhausted and nauseous to deal with this bullshit. I've been trying to not throw up for the last half hour. Fuck it, I decide, and aim. I puke all over her nice shoes. She screams and jumps back. I wish I'd said something witty right then, but I was busy just puking. She stood quietly, red-faced, at the other end of the bus, and left me alone after that. In retrospect, I feel like an asshole for making the bus driver clean up my puke. I was too much of a wreck to help, I could barely stand up, though I did apologize to him. It was a spur-of-the-moment decision and I didn't really think that consequence through. But damn, it was satisfying to puke all over that bitch.
Supervisors try to make me look bad, so I made them look worse. I'm an attorney and used to work at a state government office, where I had 2 supervisors, one for my practice group and one for my section, who from the very beginning decided to make it their business to treat me like shit. Section chief had a habit of sitting on client questions for days, then assigning them to me. Then, when the client would inevitably ask why it was taking so long to do their stuff, she'd respond only that I was the one working on that stuff, making it look like the delay was my fault. Similarly, group supervisor's favorite coquetry was to try to get me in trouble with both clients and higher-ups in our office for not doing things fast enough, despite the fact that she would procrastinate for weeks on reviewing and signing off on work I actually did very fast indeed. But what these host-beasts did not know was that A, I was saving all the emails they sent me that would include information like dates they assigned me work, etc., and B, one of the aforementioned higher-ups was my former boss during an externship in law school, so he liked me and knew I wasn't lazy or an idiot. So one day group supervisor assigned me a question from our client agency involving a citizen's public records request, and I prepared a draft response within an hour and sent it back to her. I needed her to sign off on it before I advised the client. But despite my getting a read receipt for my email, she didn't respond for the rest of the day. Or the rest of the week. I had a policy of following up with people when I didn't get timely responses, but had previously been told by this supervisor that she didn't need reminding about my emails, so I stopped doing that with her. The client was supposed to answer the records request within a tight deadline under the law, and eventually emailed group supervisor to ask where the hell their answer was. Group supervisor finally woke up and forwarded her original email assigning me the work to section chief to complain that I didn't do it in good time. And then section chief forwarded that to the client and told them it was my fault it wasn't done yet. So I, having finally had enough, rubbed my little hands together in delight and proceeded to reply all to section chief's email to client, attaching my email to group supervisor containing the draft response. I innocently wrote, "Apologies for the inconvenience, client. Our office rule is to wait for supervisory sign-off before providing advice, but I've nevertheless attached draft advice prepared on date. Group supervisor and section chief, do you agree with this advice? May client act upon it." Forward that response to former boss and very politely ask him,
in instances where there is a tight time frame to respond to a client question, is it okay to provide the client with provisional draft advice like this within the deadline, but let them know a supervisor needs a little more time to do their review and sign off?
The client ended up praising me for my efforts to get a response to him in a timely fashion. And former boss thanked me for my question but said it should never be an issue in the first place, then sent out an office-wide notice to remind supervisors that they must provide necessary sign-offs on advice within deadlines, and must never blame those under them for delays in front of clients, because that affects the image of the whole office. He attached the emails in my matter as an example of what supervisors should not do. So literally everyone saw what incompetent ass clowns they were.